Welcome to Capitol Catch-Up, your guide to what is happening in the halls of Congress. I am Victor.
And I am Leanie. Today we are diving deep into a series of newly introduced and recently passed bills that touch on everything from banking accountability and national security to veteran support and government spending integrity.
Let us start with the financial sector and executive accountability. House Resolution 9490, also known as the Bank Failure Accountability Act, takes aim at executive compensation. Lenny, this bill addresses how some executive pay structures might actually encourage risky behavior.
Exactly, Victor. Under House Resolution 9490, large financial institutions with over $1 billion in assets would be required to defer at least 50% of the compensation of their senior employees. Specifically, this applies to executives who earn significantly more than the median employee at the institution.
And that deferred money goes into a dedicated deferment fund. The key point here is that if the bank faces civil or criminal fines, or if it actually fails, those deferred funds are prioritized to cover those costs or to protect depositors. It essentially shifts the financial burden of mismanagement away from taxpayers and onto the executives who are responsible.
It is about aligning those incentives with long-term stability. Speaking of practical impacts on everyday Americans, let us look at House Resolution 877, the Deliver for Veterans Act. This bill seeks to expand support for disabled veterans by amending Title 38 of the United States Code. It allows the Department of Veterans Affairs to cover not just the purchase price, but also the shipping and delivery expenses of adaptive vehicles.
This is a very helpful change for disabled veterans who might need specialized vehicles transported directly to them. Additionally, the bill extends the sunset date for certain pension payment limitations from November 2031 to March 2032, showing a continued focus on steady financial support for our veteran community.
Now let us talk about another transportation-related bill, House Resolution 862, the TSA Commuting Fairness Act. This directs the Administrator of the Transportation Security Administration to conduct a feasibility study on whether the time employees spend traveling between airport parking or transit areas and their actual duty stations should be classified as on-duty hours.
Right now, that bill has been referred to the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. When a bill is referred to a committee like this, it means a group of lawmakers will study it closely before it can go to the full Senate for a vote. In this case, the study must look at the impact across different airport sizes, the financial costs, retirement pay implications, and even technology to track transit times.
On the legal and public safety front, the House has passed House Resolution 875, which has the long title of the Jeremy and Angel Seay and Sergeant Brandon Mendoza Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act of 2025. This bill has now been referred to the Senate Committee on the Judiciary.
This legislation amends the Immigration and Nationality Act. It mandates that any non-citizen who is convicted of, or admits to, driving while intoxicated or impaired is inadmissible to the United States and subject to deportation. Crucially, it removes any distinction between misdemeanor and felony DUI offenses, meaning the conduct itself is grounds for removal, regardless of how local or state laws classify it.
Moving on to technology and cybersecurity, which is a massive focus in several of these bills, let us look at House Resolution 872, the Federal Contractor Cybersecurity Vulnerability Reduction Act of 2025. This bill requires federal contractors to implement formal vulnerability disclosure policies that align with National Institute of Standards and Technology guidelines.
This means the Office of Management and Budget and the Department of Defense will update the Federal Acquisition Regulation to ensure contractors have clear processes for finding and managing security flaws. However, the bill does allow agency heads to grant waivers for national security or research purposes as long as they explain why to congressional committees.
And then we have House Resolution 866, the Routers Act. This one targets consumer networking equipment like routers and modems. It requires the Secretary of Commerce to study the national security risks of equipment manufactured by entities linked to foreign adversaries, with a report due to Congress within 1 year.
It is all about protecting our domestic digital infrastructure. Along those same lines of consumer protection, House Resolution 859, the Informing Consumers About Smart Devices Act, has passed the House and is pending in the Senate. It requires manufacturers of internet-connected smart devices to clearly disclose if they have cameras or microphones before you buy them.
That is important because while we expect cameras on smartphones and laptops, which are excluded from this bill, we might not realize our smart refrigerators or other home appliances have them. The Federal Trade Commission would enforce these rules and provide guidance to manufacturers.
We also see national security concerns affecting how the government buys things in House Resolution 856, the Safe and Smart Federal Purchasing Act. It directs the Director of the Office of Management and Budget to review whether using the lowest price, technically acceptable source selection process poses a threat to national security. A report is due to oversight committees within 180 days.
That ties in nicely with international defense cooperation. House Resolution 8665, the Allied Defense Sales Act, requires the Secretary of State to create a strategy encouraging foreign partners to buy United States defense articles and services through military and commercial sales. This is specifically aimed at boosting military interoperability and supporting initiatives like the AUK-US partnership.
Speaking of funding, we have two major appropriations bills for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2027. First is House Resolution 8646, which funds the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, the Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies. It sets strict budgetary caps on internal offices, regulates fund transfers, and directs resources toward research, infrastructure, and cybersecurity.
The second is House Resolution 8469, which funds military construction, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and related agencies. It covers everything from housing and facilities for the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force to the NATO Security Investment Program. It also includes strict rules, like requiring the use of American steel and limiting overseas-based development without telling Congress first.
Finally, let us talk about a package of bills designed to protect taxpayer money from fraud and improper payments. Let us start with House Resolution 8467, which is memorably called the Zombie Act, or the Zeroing Out Monetary Benefits Improperly Expended Act.
The Zombie Act amends the Payment Integrity Information Act of 2019. It forces agencies to focus specifically on improper payments that cause actual financial loss, rather than just administrative errors. It requires better risk assessments and more coordination between federal agencies, inspectors general, and state officials.
To back that up, House Resolution 8466, the True Accountability Act, requires agencies to set up internal control plans to prevent fraud during future national emergencies, like pandemics. They will have to appoint senior officials to monitor payments and conduct after-action reviews.
And if an agency suspects fraud, House Resolution 8464, the Stopping Fraudulent Payments Act, gives them the legal power to temporarily pause or segment those payments. This is a big deal because it allows routine, low-risk parts of a payment to go through while suspicious amounts are held for review. It also protects government officials who act in good faith.
To round this out, House Resolution 8463, the Pre-Payment Fraud Prevention and Treasury Data Access Act, requires strict pre-certification checks before any money is even sent. It expands the Treasury Department's Do Not Pay system and allows state and local governments to use these verification tools, while enforcing strict privacy protections and criminal penalties for leaking sensitive data.
As we wrap up today's episode, what should our listeners keep an eye on, Victor?
Watch for how these bills move through the Senate, especially House Resolution 875 on DUI offenses and the Smart Device Disclosure Bill, House Resolution 859. Also, keep an eye out for the upcoming reports on federal contracting, cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and the safety of our consumer routers.
That is all for today's Capital Catch-Up. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.